Kind regards. Today is Thursday, May 21, 2026. This is meteorologist Ruben Garcia. During the day today, NOAA published its outlook for the cyclonic activity anticipated during this hurricane season in the central and eastern Pacific, as well as in the Atlantic region. Later on, I will discuss the probabilities of having a more active than normal season in the eastern Pacific, and the probabilities of having a below normal season in the Atlantic basin. But first, I wanted to provide an update on the sea surface temperature anomalies in both the Pacific and the Atlantic. As we have discussed during the past few weeks, we continue closely monitoring the Niño 3.4 region, where the waters continue warming, and NOAA will soon declare that the El Niño phenomenon is already present. As you should know, El Niño is one of the factors that most impacts cyclonic activity in the eastern Pacific and the Atlantic. And basically all projections indicate that El Niño will develop during the next 2 months and should strengthen for the peak of the season, that is, between August and October. If we look at a cross-sectional view through the equator in the Pacific, and at ocean depths near 100 meters below the surface, we can see the progress of the warmer temperature anomalies moving eastward and toward the surface. Soon they will reach the surface just west of Peru and Ecuador. That means that during the next few days and weeks, surface temperatures in this area will continue increasing significantly. And notice that basically all ENSO prediction models show El Niño developing between June and July. Specifically for the peak of the season, some of them project temperature anomalies that may exceed 2 degrees Celsius. At this level, we would have a strong El Niño event, or what many know as a super El Niño. On the other hand, something that catches our attention is the warmer surface temperature anomalies west of Mexico. And if we zoom into the area, we can see the red colors representing regions with anomalies above 2 and 3 degrees Celsius, which can also create very favorable conditions for the development and strengthening of cyclones in the eastern Pacific region. These anomalies are so high that on average we can see that the eastern Pacific region and the area just south and west of Mexico currently have average temperatures near 29 degrees Celsius, which represents a historical record at least since 1991. If we move a bit farther west, the Central Pacific region and the area of interest for the Hawaiian Islands also currently have an average sea surface temperature approaching 27 degrees Celsius, which also represents a record for the warmest average temperatures since 1991. This is important because El Niño should increase the probabilities of an active season in the eastern Pacific and also in the Central Pacific. Added to this are near-record warm temperatures in the region between Hawaii and Mexico, which means the western coast of Mexico and Hawaii are probably at greater risk of experiencing a cyclone impact this year. Now then, let's talk a little about how temperature anomalies have evolved in the Atlantic region. And just as we have seen since the beginning of May, what stands out the most is that the subtropical and southwestern Atlantic region remains much warmer than normal. However, the region between the Caribbean and Africa remains with sea surface temperatures a bit cooler than usual, while the Caribbean Sea and Gulf of Mexico maintain average temperatures above normal. If we analyze the anomalies in different regions, in the main development region, which extends from the Caribbean Sea to Africa, temperatures are currently on average slightly warmer than normal. Specifically in the Caribbean Sea region, temperatures currently remain on average half a degree above normal. In addition, in the Gulf of Mexico region, temperatures currently also remain above normal. In fact, on average it is among the 5 years with the warmest temperature anomalies since 1991. Specifically, the subtropical Atlantic region currently remains at record levels with temperatures reaching up to 1 degree Celsius above normal. So in this case it is very interesting that despite the fact that we will have the El Niño phenomenon, which should significantly reduce cyclonic activity in the Atlantic, on the other hand, for now, temperature anomalies, specifically in the Caribbean Sea, Gulf of Mexico, and southwestern Atlantic region, remain above normal. Now then, the question is whether these warmer temperature anomalies will persist toward the peak of the season and how this could impact the cyclonic activity we anticipate. To discuss this, let's look at the cyclonic activity outlook NOAA published today for the Atlantic region. They project up to a 55% probability that the hurricane season will be below normal with between 8 and 14 storms, between 3 and 6 hurricanes, and between 1 and 3 major hurricanes, while they project a 35% probability of a near-normal season, and only a 10% probability of a more active than normal season. This coincides with the majority of groups that are forecast a less active than normal Atlantic season due to the El Niño phenomenon. And although NOAA anticipates a less active season in the Atlantic region, they do comment that projections indicate that sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic basin could be somewhat warmer than normal for the peak of the season and in some ways slightly counteract the effect of El Niño. However, we anticipate that this effect will be minimal and the strong El Niño event we anticipate should significantly limit activity in the Atlantic. In contrast, The El Niño phenomenon in the eastern and central Pacific historically results in very active seasons. In this case, the Climate Prediction Center anticipates an above-normal season in both the eastern Pacific and the central Pacific. In the case of the eastern Pacific season, they project between 15 and 22 tropical storms, when normal is 15. In addition, between 9 and 14 hurricanes, when normal is 8, and among those between 5 and 9 major hurricanes, when normal is 4. In the case of the Central Pacific region, they project between 5 and 13 tropical cyclones, when normal is 4 to 5. Remember that this forecast mainly takes into consideration the future development of a strong El Niño in Eastern Pacific, Central Pacific, and Atlantic sea surface temperatures above normal. In fact, before leaving, I wanted to show you the long-range projections from the seasonal models, specifically in the sea surface temperature anomaly parameter. Notice that the American Multimodal Ensemble projects the development of a strong El Niño in the equatorial Pacific region. In addition, above normal temperatures west of Mexico and also in the Gulf of Mexico region, the subtropical Atlantic, and sectors between the Caribbean and Africa for August, September, and October. This also coincides with the projection from the European model, which shows a subtropical Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico with warmer than normal sea surface temperatures. Also the Gulf of Guinea region and areas between the Caribbean and Africa, but with the most intense anomalies across the El Niño region in the Pacific and between Hawaii and Mexico. We see the same thing in the CANCIPS model projection for the months of August, September, and October. A strong El Niño developed in the Pacific, warmer than normal sea surface temperatures between Hawaii and Mexico, and basically throughout the entire North Atlantic region. In conclusion, I am not surprised by the outlook NOAA published today. The only change compared to what we have recorded during the past few weeks is that it appears the Atlantic could indeed be warmer than normal. However, it should not be enough to counteract the significant effect that El Niño will have, which should cause very strong wind shear across the Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean Sea, and the Eastern Caribbean region. Before leaving, I wanted to remind you that it is always important to be prepared for hurricane season, since a single hurricane can cause significant damage in the region where you live. I hope everyone has an excellent day. The next video will discuss the development of more favorable conditions for cyclone development by early June, specifically in the Eastern Pacific, and also in some sectors of the Western Caribbean Sea. And so you do not miss this and other videos, I invite you to like this video. Also, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you receive notifications when I record new videos. I hope everyone has an excellent weekend. See you later.